the home is only worth as much as somebody is willing to pay for it. And that number is totally subjective. There is no mathematical equation that you will arrive at the value for a property at any given point in time. So even MPAC or a realtor, or if you take a group of realtors or an appraiser, you get all of these people into a room and ask them to assess a specific property and put a value on it. I guarantee you nobody will, or very slim chance that everybody will have the same opinion.
What's up, everybody? I'm Adrian. This is Ariel. We're back. KT Confidential. This is episode 138. And today we are talking. Actually, lately I've been getting a lot of questions, and this is what's brought up the conversation. And that's how I often come up with my topics, is whatever's happening in our day-to-day activities with clients and emails and phone calls and texts. They just turn into conversation and topics. So today we're going to discuss a common question. It's not so much a question, it's more of an observation. People are telling me that they keep seeing houses raise their prices and they don't understand why that's happening. So we're going to chat about that. Because
I think that's a good topic because it's very relevant in the current marketplace. We're seeing a little bit of shifting, and the dynamics of how homes are being sold right now are a little bit different, and they've been different. Much. They've had ups and downs, certainly last year and this year, and not so much ups and downs in value, although there are weeks and days that a home might be valued less one day and more the other, or vice versa. But the way to achieve those results is changing on a regular basis. So I think that's a good topic to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very common occurrence in a changing market. So if you look back to the beginning of the year, well, through the better part of last year, after that little bit of a blip when COVID first hit us, the consistent strategy was you price your home low, you market it and connect with as many people as you can, and you sell for as much as you can squeeze out of the buyer that's willing to pay the most. And that was the most successful, consistent strategy. Now we're in a market where that's changing. And
before you go on to the changing of the market, that strategy worked because of extremely low supply in resale homes right across the GTA, and an increasing demand of that whole COVID shuffle. We've talked about that in the past, where people living in apartments or renting, or living downtown Toronto, they wanted a bit more space. So we saw all this shuffling around, or people that lived in the suburbs of the GTA moved out for more land, or bought a farm, or moved to a cottage year round, things like that. So the supply did not anywhere keep up to the demand. And
not at all.
And even we saw homes that were even priced at market value, not necessarily below market value, getting multiple offers. So,
and something that's unique with that too is it's not even necessarily, when you look at the market as a whole, how many homes are on the market. Sometimes you get little tiny segments where you have a very, very unique property, where even if not many properties where it may not be a feasible strategy for the average property. If you get a home, like there was one in our neighborhood for sale this year, and it was very unique. It was a very high price point. Not many homes had sold at this price point in all of Milton. It was around $2 million, but it was a unique home because it sat on a huge lot, like an enormous backyard, backed onto green space, had a big pool, lots of, I think it even had like a half-court basketball court out back, something like that. Anyways, it was a very unique home. So in a market where there was many homes that weren't having success with that strategy, this one was so unique that even at that higher price point, it was strategically smart to let it sit on the market for a few days and hold offers on a specific day. Even if you price it at what you think it would sell for, you need to get in front of the right people.
Well, I think the key is with that kind of strategy, you have to have your pulse on the market in terms of what the buyer's needs and wants are at that given time. And that has fluctuated and changed throughout the seasons and throughout the years. And, whether it's the color of kitchen cabinetry, the type of floors, the location, the floor plan, all of those things go through a buyer's mind. And if your home is just like another three or four homes that are on the market, what is differentiating your home other than price? So that's what it boils down to. And I think your topic of, you know, um, the strategy and seeing different price points on these listings is happening in real time right now. So I don't know, how much do you want to dive in and talk about that
Well, I
specifically?
think so. Just to give a very clear answer to the comment that comes up, I think the mindset of people saying it to me has been that they were sort of in disbelief that the list price was increased after it had been on the market for a week and clearly didn't sell. So that's the perception people have of perhaps they don't quite understand. Well, I've seen it many times that the list price is not necessarily an indication of market value. So if you're seeing house prices change and they're going up, what probably happened was they listed a price, had a we'll say they listed it likely very low compared to what they thought the home would sell
Well,
for.
let's just give an example with $1 million property.
Okay. So let's say the house is worth, in the eyes of the seller and the listing agent, $1 million. And they choose a strategy of, well, let's hold offers. Now, in most cases, when you're holding offers, you're going to price it low with expectations of selling for more. And the other reason you might be doing this strategy is because you don't definitively know what the value of the home is because it's very unique and you need to see what somebody's willing to pay. So maybe you list it for $799.
Ooh, that's
and
really low.
It's not real at some points in the market over the last year. That probably would have been. I'm sure that I've seen many that did that low, but to satisfy Ariel, let's say $899, and you schedule a date to review offers, a date and time. Roughly 4 or 5 days, 6 days after the home is on the market. So then you have those 4, 5, 6 days of showings. You don't permit offers during that time. And then at that day and time you've scheduled, anyone that's interested will send the offer to your agent. And that's where the whole process of negotiations takes place. Now, when you see a house increase their price, it's likely because of one of two things. On that scheduled day and time, they either did not receive any offers, or the offers or offer that they received was not satisfactory. So they had expectations of selling for $1 million. They listed for $899. One offer or two offers came in, and the most they could get is $950, $960. And they weren't happy with that because they're confident it's worth at least $1 million. So they say no thank you to those two offers. They relist the next day at a price that probably is a good indication of what they want to sell for. And to answer some people's question, because I've had this come up too, just because you get an offer, even if it is the asking price, it doesn't mean you have to accept it. I've had people say, oh, well, if we get, like, I'm scared to list low because what if somebody comes in at that price? Do I have to accept it? Well, the answer is no. It's your house, your offers, your decision. You can decide what's an acceptable offer.
Yeah, you only sign when you're happy with the price terms and conditions. So the other important variable in all of the pricing strategy that happens in the marketplace, and you hear me say it all the time, certainly to our realtors, the home is only worth as much as somebody is willing to pay for it. And that number is totally subjective. There is no mathematical equation that you will arrive at the value for a property at any given point in time. So even MPAC or a realtor, or if you take a group
Even
of
an appraiser.
realtors, or an appraiser.
There's instances where appraisers come in low and it screws the mortgage up. And I've heard of people going to get a second appraisal done and it comes in higher and things work out.
You get all of these people into a room and ask them to assess a specific property and put a value on it. I guarantee you nobody will, or very slim chance that everybody will have the same opinion.
I imagine the buyer of my house won't see as much value in it as I do because I live next door to you. They probably won't care.
So what happens when I sell my home? If I sell my home first, I just won't disclose that
you probably shouldn't let them know who's next door.
Right. Now, actually, if you were selling a celebrity home, as an example,
or a house on the same street as a celebrity.
Yeah. Well, a buddy of mine lives on the street where Gord Downey lived. At the end of his street, it was Gord Downey's primary family home.
Wow.
And it was sold while he was still alive. So I wonder what that would do to the market value now, if and how that would change it. But that's an example of a home only being worth as much as somebody's willing to pay. That's why collectibles, as an example, like if you have an autograph from Elvis, and it's on a piece of clothing that he wore, you and I, it's worth, whatever, $50. But to a diehard Elvis fan, it might be worth thousands of dollars. So
yeah,
it's
well,
also
your suggestion of, or your the concept of a celebrity's house is intriguing to me, because if the celebrity lives there, I think it adds value to the surrounding homes. Because if somebody's considering to move there and they're a big fan of that celebrity, I can see them paying more money for it than somebody who's not.
Sure.
But as soon as they move, I think it no longer has that same effect on the neighbors, but it does still affect the house itself, because the buyer of that house can say, "Oh, Dwayne Johnson used to live here."
Quick story for you.
So it's interesting.
I have friends that at one point they lived right next to the Wayne Gretzky's restaurant.
Okay.
And the building that they lived in was a very nice condo building. A few of the Maple Leaf players were living in that building at that time. And pretty well every time I saw them, for the first couple of years that they lived there, every time I saw them or talked to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, we ran into such and such in the elevator on the way up." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, who cares?" But the point was that they got so excited and gave them those bragging rights, and they're big Toronto Maple Leaf fans. So did they appreciate and like that fact that they lived and one of them was on the same floor as them. But just going back to this, so, the whole concept of listing low, you don't get offers or don't have an offer that's acceptable to the seller. And now you have to come up with a strategy. And the strategy has to be basically a discussion between the realtor and the sellers. And, okay, why are we in this position? That's the first question we have to ask ourselves and ask the sellers. And it's a candid conversation, has to be open and honest. Why are we in this position? Was it because of the marketing? Was it because of the way the home looks? Is it the condition of the home? Is there something wrong with the house? Is something triggering buyers that they don't want to put an offer on the property? Or is it a variable of the marketplace where there might be too many similar homes on the market? There might be a little bit of hesitation in the marketplace because of timing, right? Going back to spring last year where COVID was, just the whole pandemic was just starting and there was very little activity in real estate. people were very trigger shy. But then, not too many weeks later, the market became so hot and all of the inventory got gobbled up really quickly that's what you put the fuel on the fire for the real estate market. So there's always going to be these peaks and valleys, but you have to ask yourselves, why are we in this position? And then what is our strategy? Why is that our strategy? And realistically, based on all of the comparable properties that are currently on the market and the ones that have sold very recently, no longer the days are you comparing to homes that sold 30, 60, 90 days ago, maybe 30, depending on the type of house it is. But we're talking what happened yesterday, what happened last week. And then intimately knowing the homes that are on the market. What are they like? What do they look like? What do they smell like? What kind of upgrades do they have? What are the pros and cons of that home? How long has it been on the market? Have they been relisted at all? So there's this whole process of information gathering that has to happen. And then, so in that $1 million example, if somebody lists it at $899.9, they hold an offer night. They don't have any deals that come out of that 4 or 5 day period, whatever you suggested. Now, the next day, you see a new price of $1,029,000 and accepting offers anytime. And that's how, in a balanced marketplace, you see the price and okay, they're probably going to accept that, or maybe a little bit less if you can negotiate with them, depending on how much interest is there. Right.
Yeah.
So, but the key here is, and I think this is the key that a lot of people forget. Anybody can ask whatever they want to ask for the house. You see a lot of homes being overpriced. So that home that's worth $1 million, the seller maybe 30 days ago saw a home similar sell for $1 million, and all of the signs around town are saying sold over asking, sold in a day, blah blah blah. So he thinks, okay, well, if we're going to accept offers anytime now, let's price it at 1.1 million. And that's the problem. That's what's happening. And now that home is going to be what we call stale on the market, because it's going to sit on the market for 2-3 weeks. And the buyer audience isn't stupid. They're going to be like, wait a minute, that house was listed for $899.9. Now it's listed for $1.1 million. We saw a similar home last week sell for $1 million. What's going on here? And then we as realtors get the call, and we're supposed to subjectively understand or speak about the value of that property. Okay, well, Mr. Customer, the similar home sold for $1 million last week. There aren't any real comparable homes on the market. So, maybe they'll take $1.10 million, $1.20 million, whatever. But 1.1 is definitely high. Now you show the house, you bring them an offer of $1.20 million. They say, no, we'll wait. No, we'll wait. No, that's not their expectation. And it's this stupid game that goes back and forth. And where it happens frequently are when listing agents are listing in a neighborhood that they don't typically buy and sell. Like, they don't trade in that neighborhood on a regular basis or know it very well. And the price, that subjective price, is just pulled magically out of the air. And there you go. I wrote down 2 notes. And those 2 notes are: how many days would you recommend for your offer presentation date, and why? I think you said it earlier, but I want to explain why you wouldn't choose a shorter or a longer period of time. So I think you said 4, 5, 6 days. 5, 6 days.
Well, there's a lot of variables that could impact it. My decision could vary depending on a number of circumstances. If it, there might be some properties where I would say we need to wait 2 weeks. And, perhaps that could be, a house that just doesn't show very well. It's tenanted. And the tenant's not overly cooperative. And you want to make sure you get sufficient people through. Maybe in that case, somebody waits a long time. There may be cases where you only wait, like you listed on a Wednesday, you accept offers on Saturday. Like maybe there was the identical house that sold 2 days prior to you going to market. And now you've listed, and the audience that was there for that house immediately sees your house and they get through your house super fast. You may not even get it's in that case, in a hot market where that listing maybe had 10 offers, it's likely those 10 people are going to be lined up at your house now. So in that case, you may not get past 24 hours if you get the right buyer that missed out on that house and they come pay top dollar for your house. We had that happen this year. But I would say if you're looking at the average scenario where this strategy is conducive to a successful sale, we usually list kind of midweek. And that's something I usually recommend, and take offers on the Sunday or Monday, exceptions being long weekends. You might adjust it at that point. But and I think that the mentality with the weekend aspect of it is to give people the opportunity to get through, which I think is less important now than it used to be, because a lot of people are working from home and they're able to get out to see houses a little bit more.
That's so true.
Easily. Yeah.
Whereas before, and virtual means being able to walk through a lot of them in 3D.
Yeah. Yeah. Like before, it was all like we were super busy showing houses every day after 5 o'clock and every weekend. That's when the only time people could get out. Now people are working from home. So I'm finding they're taking longer breaks than usual because they don't mind working a little bit later into the day, or they just don't care because nobody knows.
They're not telling their employer. That's exactly what's happening though, because.
But you know what too, on that note,
go ahead.
I was just going to say a lot of employers are very accommodating because they know how difficult it is to buy a house. So I know many people whose bosses were like, no, you can go. Don't worry. Go look at the house.
Well, and employers really don't have a choice and have to be a little bit understanding of what's happening in the world. But it's funny you say that, because it's very, very true. Both of us and all of the realtors on our team, all showings were pretty well. You were very thankful when somebody said, "Oh, can we see it sometime in the morning?" Right?
Oh, I loved it. I was always trying to get morning appointments. Nobody would ever do them.
It was always evenings and weekends. But now I'm finding our clients are actually saying, let's go see it during the day. So during the business hours, because they want to free up their evenings and weekends now for not home shopping, right? For doing other things. So, and that's good, because seeing a home in daylight makes a lot of sense too, right? Like if you're showing a property in the evening and you're losing sunlight, you're probably not seeing things that you want to see, and you want to know how much natural light comes into the house, whatever. My suggestion usually is 5 or 6 days, less than a week. It has to be less than a week. There's a few things that go into my thought process with it. First of all, yes, holidays, long weekends, things like that will play a factor. But if you go over a week or over, the listing gets a little bit stale. And resale homes are the hottest in the first few days. First 3 or 4 days are usually the busiest for a new listing. So let's just presume you're waiting 9 or 10 days to accept offers. Do you really think that the buyers that came through on the first or second day are even going to remember the property? Or in that additional week of marketing time, did other properties come up on the market that either screwed your valuation or made the buyers second guess whether or not they like your property, because maybe that one has a finished basement and for $20,000. I'd like to have that one with the finished basement. And, so there's a bunch of variables. If you go shorter than 5 or 6 days, you're potentially not leaving enough time for the widest audience possible to see the listings, because you want to market it to the widest audience, get as many eyes.
Especially right now in many cases where we don't allow overlapping appointments. So you are limited
Correct.
to a specific number of showings per day, whereas just over a year ago, we would allow as many people through the house as we could get in through the day. It doesn't
we
matter
used
if
to
4 people
love
are there at the same
overlapping
time.
appointments, right? We used to love it. Like, I remember we had one listing that had 90 showings before we accepted offers. And on a Saturday, there was 1 hour booked where there were 7 showings during that hour. And our front desk that was taking the appointments called me and said, do you know we've got 7 appointments on this listing from 2 to 3 or whatever time it was? And I was like, wow, that's great. For sure, a big clusterfuck happened at the home in terms of who's got the key and all this. But I mean, we've got our Arlo camera watching, so I wasn't too concerned. I'm like, let them through, let them in, go, go, go. Because then when people see there's so many people there and you're waiting your turn or whatever, or you're in the house and there's 3 or 4 or 5 other groups, you're like, oh, there's going to be some competition on this. This is a hot house.
And that's what a lot of people forget, is that sales is about emotions. And if you can play and get people excited, and that's why, like you were saying, if you wait too long, they come down from that high.
Yeah, that emotion kind of dissipates. So 5-6 days. The other question, if you don't sell on offer night, do you change the price in the same listing? Or do you take down that listing, cancel that listing, and now relist with a new listing? Let me explain before you answer. So when you're on realtor.ca on MLS, it assigns an MLS number. We have to...
Just so we know, you're explaining to the audience, not me.
Yeah. I think that was pretty
just make sure, because I want to make sure you know that I know what you're talking about.
Right. I'm not... This isn't a podcast where I educate Adrian, right? Although some of our new realtors
sometimes
might pick up a few things on that, but no, this is value for the audience. And hey, we got a ton of realtors that watch and listen to the podcast. And let me tell you, I've talked to some of them and they're like, oh yeah, I picked up some great pointers. So never know who's listening. But when you as a consumer, when you list your property with a realtor, you're going to have a listing agreement and you're going to have documents to sign with the real estate boards. When ultimately it's listing day and the property gets listed on the public sites, you will probably most know realtor.ca. That is the largest real estate website in the country. And that's where all MLS properties get listed. What are you doing?
I'm fidgeting. I fidget. I'm just folding a piece of paper while I listen.
We don't want to watch you fidget. Anyways, so it assigns an MLS number. So let's say the MLS number is 12345. And here's your listing of $899.9, accepting offers on Tuesday. Tuesday comes around, you don't get any offers. Do you keep listing 12345 going and just make a price adjustment? So now people will see you were listed at $899.9 as the previous price, or the realtors will see this anyway. And now you're listed for $1,029,000. Or do you cancel that listing completely? So now one MLS number 12345 just goes into the archives, which, by the way, realtors can see. They can see the history of when and how it was listed and previous price, blah, blah, blah. And now on Wednesday, you relist that property for the $1,029,000, and it's now MLS number 12347 or whatever. So that's the question here. Do you just change the price in the existing listing, or do you cancel that listing and relist it with a brand new MLS number?
I've done. You're asking me, right? Okay.
Well, I'm not asking the audience.
So I've done both.
I'm not Oprah.
I've done both, and actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea. We should go live and ask the audience. I've done both. I think at that point in the process, that I think I lean towards just doing a price adjustment. And my thought on that is there are a lot of eyes on the property still, one would assume. And there's going to be people on realtor.ca, the end user, the buyer that has favorited it. And and realtors still, if they have some sort of search set up, they will also be notified of updates. So they will see the price adjustment. So I think with that initial price adjustment, in many cases, I usually lean towards just doing a price adjustment opposed to a new listing. A little bit later into the stage, if the circumstances are different and someone's doing a price reduction, I think at that point, after the market has been on the market for a little while and you've lost some of the eyes on it and showings have slowed down, I think at that point a new listing is good because it garners new attention. Whereas after 4, 5, 6 days, you still have a lot of that, and people will see the change. And one interesting thing, and this is why, as a homeowner, if someone's selling, it can be a very stressful process. And if you don't sell on that planned date to take offers, I wouldn't stress about it. What's more important is how you handle it. There are often a lot of people on the sidelines watching who don't want to bid on it on offer night because they are afraid of how much it could cost. And then the next day, after they realize it didn't sell, it's very common a day or two later, you're going to get offers from people that saw it beforehand who didn't want to get into that bidding process. And you could still do very well.
Yeah. You see, we've gone down both paths many, many times. And when one of our realtors calls me and says, Ariel, this is what's happening with this listing. Do you have any advice? What should I do? Can we talk about it? Just brainstorm. It depends on the house. It depends on how many comparable properties are on the market. It depends on, the first thing I do is I pull up the MLS and our website activity. What did the activity look like? Seriously, didn't buy a new chair yet, eh?
Can you hear it squealing? I'll try not to move.
Were there thousands of MLS views and hundreds of people that favorited it? It didn't sell on offer night, probably not. But you're digging into those algorithms, those analytics a little bit, and seeing what is it doing? How much attention is it getting right now? Because if you do take down that MLS listing and now relist it completely with a new MLS number, people that did favorite it on realtor.ca or have been watching it through their links provided by their realtor, that'll go away. That disappears. So you have to be a bit cautious there. And again, we've tried both. Not tried. We've used both strategies many times. I'm a fan of actually canceling and relisting, and I'll tell you why. This is my little secret, we'll say. I guess it won't be so much of a secret now. There are, how do I put this in a politically correct way?
You don't need to.
There are going to be realtors out there that don't do their proper due diligence, might not even realize that this was previously listed for a different price. So there's also going to be a whole bunch of new people coming into the market on a regular basis, or that just missed it. Because in a 4 or 5 day window, it's very easy that a potential buyer might miss a listing.
Or just wasn't able to get out to see it.
Or just wasn't able to get out to see it or whatever, but might even miss it completely. So basically you have I call it the oblivious crowd. They don't know any different. It's just like you listed this home at $1,029,000 for the first time. The second thing is that it resets its days on market. So if it takes you 3-4 days now to get an offer on that property, you're not negotiating from a point of being on the market for 9 or 10 or 11 days. Now you're negotiating on a 3 or 4 day on market situation. And it allows you to be a little bit more picky in terms of the offers that you're going to accept, because your negotiation point is, well, we've only been on the market for 2 or 3 or 4 days with the new price, and we've seen great activity. So we're willing to wait until we get an offer that's acceptable. So, there's both sides of the equation there. There's no right or wrong answer, to be honest with you.
I think what's more important is very much what you kind of alluded to, is having somebody that knows how to handle it.
Well, okay, I won't mention the address because that's going to get me in trouble. But there is a home, and it's, as of today's date, it's still on. I don't know about when this podcast will air, if it'll be on the market or not. But this property started at $1,490,000-ish here in Milton. It's actually an identical home to mine. So it's 2,500-ish square feet, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
Don't give too many details.
It has a finished basement. Narrow that down. It was listed at $1,489,900, accepting offers in 5 or 6 days. Didn't get any offers. They listed it then at $1,399,900, accepting offers in another 3-4 days. Whatever. They didn't accept any offers. Then it was listed for $1 million.
See, that's a silly strategy.
Hang on. I'm not done yet. Then it was listed at $1,299,900, accepting offers anytime. Still no sale. Then it was listed for $1,349,900, accepting offers in 3-4 days. Still no sale. Now they're listed at $1,399,000. Then they were listed at $1,399,000, accepting offers anytime. Still no sale. Now they're listed at $1,299,000. Accepting offers anytime.
Does it look nice?
No.
Well, I assume based on their poor strategy that the rest of it is poor, so that makes sense.
It's rough, but it's dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to buy a dirty home.
Well, for that size of home,
who likes to buy a dirty home? Investors.
Yeah,
and an investor doesn't pay top dollar in most cases, especially on a home that's been bounced around like that in the marketplace. It's now been on the market for probably 60 days.
I saw a listing a couple days ago in the public remarks. I was looking at it on the real estate board. In the public remarks section, the first 2 words were still on market, or no, still available, with an exclamation mark. And then in the broker realtor remarks down below, it still had the original scheduled offer date, which was a date in the past.
That drives me nuts. And we see that a lot. Like if you do, so in your scenario where you didn't accept an offer on offer night, and the next day or that night you're changing the price in the same MLS number, in the broker remarks, what the brokers see is offers to be presented on Tuesday, June 27th at 9:00 or whatever. If it's now Wednesday and it's got the new price, remove the remark. Otherwise, 2 weeks later, it's now July 7th and it still says in broker remarks, offers to be presented on June 27th, right?
Which in that case, it didn't really matter because they just came right out and said, still available.
Anyway,
very funny.
Yep, that's episode 138 of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. We know you've already liked, subscribed, all that fun stuff, but go ahead and leave us a comment what you think about this podcast, and also give us some ideas for future podcasts. We love to hear from you. Love to hear what you want us to talk about, because that's what we do.